When the first home of people with disabilities started coming to Connections, they would come in, worship with us, and then very quickly exit. I was just determined that I was going to thank them for being here. And so I made it out there this time, and they stopped and rolled down the window. And I said, I just wanted to thank you for being here. This is awesome. And the driver started crying. And I said, what's wrong? And she said, well, Pastor George, she said, we're used to either being asked to leave or told not to come back. And she said, I was just expecting you to tell us not to come back. When I was in my other church, I know that we marginalized people. I mean, if somebody came in and didn't behave themselves, we asked them to leave. Please be quiet. And we don't do things that way here. And so that's a part of who we minister to.
The work of a pastor is preaching the word so that God's people are led into God's purposes. And you're trying to minister in multiple ways. You're always trying to find out how do you suit the application of the word to their situation so that they're finding Christ and finding Christ sufficient to take them into his purposes in this world. We hadn't really thought intentionally about how do we care particularly for families that have children with special needs. And then when you think about that, you're often not necessarily thinking about how do you structure care for the family that has to walk through this.
At first glance, Nolan is someone who you can define really easily based on his autism.
Say good morning.
He's a kid that doesn't hang out as a friend the way you and I would.
Can you shake hands?
That's what makes him stand out at first. But then when you get to know Nolan for Nolan, you start to see a lot of beauty inside him. You start to see a kid who loves everybody, despite how they react to him. You start to see a kid who sticks up for his twin sister in his own ways.
Music has kind of always captured his interest.
It's his thing. He struggles in the church setting. He struggles sometimes with the volume. You'll see the cupping. But what you'll also see is his sign of joy, which a lot of times comes out in flapping. And that flapping happens when the church starts singing. It's like worship comes alive for him. That's the part he engages the most with during a church service when he is able to be in church.
With Nolan, it was hard.
Okay, you ready? Church time.
Being confined to a chair and standing and sitting, it doesn't always work well for him.
Doesn't process for him.
No.
Church. Can you say church?
With all the sounds going on, he processes everything 10 times more than the rest of us. And it gets overwhelming and he loses it and he melts down. Nolan is a full-time job. And we'd have to explain to his twin sister, our daughter Catherine, this is part of the autism. He can't sit still here, so they're gonna duck out and go to a room for a while. And next thing you know, you have another loud kid. And so a lot of times we'd find our whole family sitting in that back room.
I think it got to the point where sitting in church as a family became more about the stress of keeping him quiet, contained, than it was about actual worship.
And we'd get in the car on the ride home and kind of look at each other and go, why did we come to church?
Thank you very much.
I attended the Calvin Symposium on Worship, and I was very convicted after being there. Barb Newman talked about these puzzle pieces. On one side of the piece would be maybe your problem areas or your weaknesses. And I think for people of varying abilities, sometimes those stick out like a sore thumb. However, they have strengths too. Taking those pieces and putting them together as a congregation, that's the body of Christ working together. And so I was convicted to just start thinking about what are little things that I can do even right now to start including people. And I felt such an urgency about it because I felt like they're really important. We have a man who is seeing impaired, and he's mentioned to me that he would like to play on the worship team.
Brother Aaron.
Ron, how you doing, man?
All right, yourself?
Good. It's good to get the band back together, man.
It is.
He figured probably that's like a long shot. It's really not going to work well. But I said, you know what, let's try it. There's no reason we can't try it.
I'm legally blind, but that means something different for a whole lot of different people. I can't see you, but I can see light if it's bright enough. Hey, Julie, if you really want to be inclusive, you'll get me one of these tuners. Julie has helped me get this set up here. It's just a regular monitor that I've turned sideways, and also I have a foot pedal to move the music along.
This will be the third week in a row now that he's been playing on the worship team. I won't lie, it takes a ton of time to switch all the music over. And I know that there's a piece of him that wants to just say, this is just too much for people. I will just bow out and let it be. But as a worship team, we've all really just come around him and made him know that he's worth being here. And he has an amazing heart for worship. And to be able to just see that, be able to come alive in him, it's just really a beautiful thing of just seeing how that puzzle piece goes together. The other night, I heard him say as he was leaving, this is just so great because I feel like I'm finally doing something normal again.
It's not just sitting in worship. How does he fit into a mold that isn't maybe the most accommodating for him at all times? We met with our pastors and with Barb Newman and kind of said, look, here's where we struggle. What should we do? And I remember one key question Barb asked our pastors was, what do you know about Nolan? And their response was, he's your son? He has autism?
Not a whole lot.
There wasn't a whole lot. And that's not to discredit them in any way. But I think they as pastors were the first step. We have to educate them to who our child is before we can even go to the congregation and say, we need help.
That conversation was really the first time I had a clear sense of how deep a struggle this was for them, just being part of the church. There was just something that went on in my heart that said, this is not going to happen. We're going to do what we have to do to care for these people. And so that's what we did.
I think I just don't think from other people's perspectives sometimes, what is it that could be implemented in maybe a very seemingly simple way so that all people can have the same experience where they're able to engage God with everything that they have.
We created a team of volunteers who, on a rotating system, could help Tim and Laura with Nolan on Sundays. And it was amazing to see the number of individuals and the kind of individuals that came forward and said, I'd love to do this.
The room he's in on Sunday has windows into the sanctuary. It's got sound piped in so he can hear what the songs sound like. Team Nolan members can turn the sound down when it's too loud, but he also is in a place where he can walk around. So he has that full understanding of what church worship looks like. That changed Nolan's world in church, I think.
So these are the worship pouches. There's all sorts of things just so that you can twiddle with something. It's not bothering the people next to you, and it can help you pay more attention. And that just meets some of the other needs in the congregation as well, mine included. One of the other changes that we've been trying to implement at our church is to simply have the pastors say, please rise in body or in spirit. There is legitimate reason that some people cannot stand for this entire time, but everyone can rise in spirit. It includes everyone.
There are times when we all need that same kind of help and understanding at some point in our life. And so when we worship together, when we sing together, it brings it home.
I just see that our folks with disabilities have just made our community richer. We have kids that play guitars that never knew they had abilities. It's given them the courage to get in front of a microphone and find out they have a voice. And they might not have been challenged and might not have had courage to do that if it wasn't for Jillian, who wanted to come up and sing.
I think that a good beginning point would be to simply start talking with people. Don't start with the needs, start with the strengths. Find out what people are good at, find out what people like to do, and then open a conversation for other things.
Ask the families to help you. Ask them to help you understand. And then be prepared as a leadership group to think creatively.
We didn't have answers that day at the table. We're figuring out life with Nolan every day, but it opened up the door to talk about Nolan as a whole. He is probably one of the most judged people on a daily basis, and yet he's probably the one who loves the most unconditionally of everybody around him.
God has a plan for us needing each other, and how that comes out in people of varying abilities, in all people, really. When I can use my strength to help somebody with a weakness, they're able to turn and say, I could help you out there. That's the body of Christ working together. And that's just something that I think just really makes God smile.